Last week, when I took you through the AI preparation instructions, I suggested that you prepare a mock planning sheet for a number of possible strategic initiatives. And these were set out on the slide here. And I included a new cinema, which, although it wasn't in the AI as a strategic objective, it clearly is one of their imperatives. One of the things I missed off was a new restaurant agreement with Joule or possibly with another subcontractor. This is going to come up in one of the mock exams, but in preparation for that, I strongly recommend that you do one of those planning sheets for a new restaurant agreement as well. Then finally, for today, one of the things that the examiner has recommended that you do is to prepare a 500 to 600 word, that's about a couple of type pages, summary of the Sequin story to demonstrate to yourself, nobody else is going to see it, whether or not you really understand the AI and the key points that are in it. I suggest you do this in 4 parts, linking to the 4 parts of your business issues. So the first would be the Sequin story, and here are some thoughts, some headings for what you might talk about. The 4 different cinemas, 2017 being the first full year of operations, 3 shareholders, all have cinema experience. They lease their properties from Taylor Stone on 5 years, and the Leicester lease is going to come up for renewal soon. 3 income streams: box office, food and drink, and advertising. And the food and drink is subbed out to Joule. And finally, 3 target audiences at the moment: young professionals, families with children, and the over 55s. Then moving on to the industry. Very competitive industry, particularly with multiplexes and independents and other leisure offerings. There are 3 large players in the cinema market: Vue, Cineworld, and Odeon. Location is one of the key factors in determining whether or not a cinema is successful. It's viewed as a unique experience, a special outing, something different to just watching films on another medium. It's constantly developing and therefore requires investment. Bookings can be made online or through apps, so there's a technology aspect to running this business. There are economies of scale, particularly when negotiating with distributors, which can result in lower fees, but also, more importantly, I think, is getting a good variety of films and getting the blockbusters early. And finally, there's the issue of seasonality in the industry and in the profile of box office revenues. Moving on then to markets. Average occupancy before you reach saturation in terms of the market is 30 to 40%. We think that growth is slowing. There is this 8% statistic in the AI, which we've worked out how that is arrived at. It's the increase in the first quarter for the cinema industry as a whole. That's production and box office, which has then been annualized. But that assumes that the growth is going to be steady through the year, which is a pretty unlikely assumption, as you'll see when you look at the seasonality. There are threats from other platforms. There are opportunities in using new technologies. Advertising is a very effective medium, and or cinema advertising, sorry, is a very effective advertising medium. It generates around about 8% of box office revenue, and Sequin has two advertising customers. Those are agents that show their screen advertisements in the Sequin cinemas, Transcreen and Vixen. The demographics of the market show that it's highly segmented, which means that you've got multiple audiences that you've got to constantly target and keep happy. And this impacts the occupancy rate and also the average ticket price. Then finally, we've done some work on our economic data. These are from two sites, from the ONS, Office of National Statistics, and also from the UK Cinema Association site. And that's as much as you have to do. And this is as much of the data as you need to do. So in class today, we did some work on GDP. So 0.2% in 0.2%, 0.8% and 0.1% in quarters 2, 3 and 4 in 2017, and 0.1%, so even lower, in the first quarter of 2018. And the reason that we've done that is just to give a feel for how the UK economy is growing and how that's going to filter through to individuals and their disposable income. So what's important there is two things: how quickly are wages increasing, and secondly, what's the impact of inflation. So if the wages are increasing but costs are increasing more quickly, actually the disposable income is going to go down. And what we found is that general wages are going up 2.5%, but the living wage, that's right at the bottom of the pay scale, has gone up by 4.4%. So it will push lower wages, the wages of lower paid people up, but they're unlikely to have as much discretionary income. However, that's being offset with inflation at March 18 of also 2.5%. So actually no real pay rise at all. And the trend over the last year has been that inflation has been higher than wage settlements. We'll get some updated data before we actually sit the exam in July, so we just need to keep an eye on this and make sure we update it at the final session. I also suggested that people have a look at what's happened to business rates and what's happened to utility costs. Now, the class today didn't have any answers for that, so that's on your to-do list to complete. All of the information that you've got is available on the web resources, and you can use that to complete your story, your Sequin story, to make sure that you have a full understanding of what's going on. As well as the AI forum that has been running now for a week, there's a new forum specifically for what we call the Requirement 2 Extra, the extra one that you're doing on a standalone basis, if you've got any questions for me on that. And finally, these are the next steps that you need to do before the exam techniques masterclass video is released on Monday the 2nd of July. You need to have completed your AI preparation, completed the Sequin R2 Extra, so that's writing up your answer to understand how that plan converts into paragraphs so that you end up writing around about 900 words in total, and you can also practice putting together an executive summary. You need to complete your case summary, and finally, before you start work on the Sequin exam technique, I strongly recommend that you go to the ETP suite of videos. Make sure that you've watched the videos so that you understand the technique that is required for each of the 3 different requirements and for the executive summary. And if you have the time, that you do at least one of the Piccolo exams to walk through using the technique so that you're familiar with it before you start to apply it to Sequin. I look forward to catching up with you again in the masterclass on the 2nd of July. Thank you.